Non-Conflictual.
Thank you very much, Jan and Marketa, for the invitation, and thank you for having me here. And thank you for being here, because I can see that there's a lot of party happening outside. I'm sure afterwards, hopefully there's enough time for you left. Okay, I don't know if you know this issue. I won't talk about this at this moment. I gave a lecture about this topic some time ago in Prague, so I'm not repeating this, and also we brought in the magazine. But to just keep it briefly, the topic is called just architecture, and it plays with the double meaning of the word just, saying, okay, are we architects only doing architecture, yeah, in terms of it's just architecture, or can architecture actually be just in terms of fair? Yeah? Can justice be a planning parameter? And I find it very important to play on a double role, because to some extent many ideologies in architecture where people were absolutely convinced that you can change the world with architecture, this is maybe where we're taking ourselves too serious. On the other hand, if we take justice serious as a planning parameter, then we may be able to change something, yeah? Because we as architects have a similar responsibility as everybody else to make sure, and I'm talking to you today that Obama won, which makes me very happy. So I'm just remembering in this sense that it may be kind of also relating to such sorts of ideas and concepts. So feel free to take that afterwards, and the topic may come back from time to time, but it's not the central topic of today. But, oh, what did I do? Sorry, I'm just coming, oops, full screen mode, and I'm doing like this, exactly. But what I can show, maybe briefly relating to this, I did a couple of workshops in Brno. I was part of an exhibition at Forum for Art and Architecture last year, where I also dedicated a workshop to the topic of justice and architecture and urban design, and also in Praha, where I was invited to do a workshop together with a series of students, which here looks like a concert, a rock band or something like this. But what these workshops were about is to really go to the city, to your city that you know, and to look at the space and ask yourself, are these spaces that you see just? Are they fair spaces? Are they unfair? To what context? To whom? To some people they may be fine, to others they may be very exclusive or discriminate. And in this sense, what we did here was basically keep a bit a documentation in terms of postcard this workshop. This is, for instance, do we architects actually really know how wide streets are? How much space is there? Couldn't we constantly actually start or think of measuring space in terms of the possibility of having free open space? This, for instance, is a large roof over an entrance to a homeless care facility, yeah, where you really have to ask yourself, okay, what's the placement about? Yeah? What does it mean to have homeless care being placed exactly there? I mean, you can look at all this. Yeah, this is interesting because you have to look at it upside down. It's a postcard. But in this homeless care center, on the side, there was this little garden, yeah, with little plants. And we were like immediately intrigued, and we thought, oh, that's nice. Somebody's trying to make this place nice. And then we asked the runners of the careless home facility, and we said, like, nice garden, but why don't you open it? And then they said, actually, I'm sorry to say so, it's not a nice garden. We made it in order to prevent the homeless to sleep there. So you can just see how crooked the arguments are getting more and more, you know. You think that somebody's trying to make a nice garden here, but at the end, actually, even in the homeless care center, people are trying to prevent, with the nice flowers, to have homeless people sleep there. So in this sense, this is what I'm interested in, really getting an awareness and a sensibility about as architects and urban planners. Well, this is the schedule for the showering there, which is strictly organized, and you can only come at a certain time. So in a sense, maybe these postcards also relate to works of, for instance, the artist Robert Smithson, who also did a similar way in like going through everyday spaces and just look at, and in a way kind of ironically twisting or looking at them and finding out the real meaning. well, you can look at these postcards on my webpage, and I was just referring, since we received this magazines, which is very nice, of Osama Okamura, and this is the topic justice that we have been dealing with there. Okay. So, then just to kind of finish the website series, I'm sometimes working together with artists in this sense that I really find it interesting to work interdisciplinary, not meaning that I need to become an artist or whatever, but I'm like working within my realm of architecture and the artist in his or hers. And this is, for instance, a cooperation with a choreographer. His name is Willy Dorner, and he has been interested in urban space and the using of it. And together we developed kind of a choreography of like how you could use the built structure as a structure to cling on or to hang on. And this is, for instance, one possibility. Or for instance, we were looking really at spaces to see, to kind of also critically assess what is space, you know, what is such a corridor about, yeah? And maybe it's also the critique of an extreme moment of like how relative space is, or in terms of its width, in terms of its dimension, whatever seems to us just like a pathway, maybe to other people, or if I repeat back or come back to the idea of homeless, could be like a shelter. Yeah? And this, of course, it's more of an absurd shelter being really on the roof. And then we had this one setup in the street on a corner where we basically built up a whole, this is just the probes for it, constantly measuring how little space do people need. This is based on tatami system. And then we were squeezing in the people into this structure and just building kind of temporary architecture within corners. This is inside, but then we brought the project outside into public space. So I'm just giving you a note of like how I'm interested in learning from doing in outside, yeah, from going outside, from analyzing, from working together, in this case with a choreographer, in order to actually still understand or better relate to our everyday surrounding. Good. And one last thing as an introduction. I have this philosophy on my webpage, and I want to read it to you because it's been like many times a very heavily debated one. And we discussed it a lot in my office, and we made it public, obviously, otherwise it wouldn't be there. Saying GABU HEINDL architecture says yes and no. Yes to the design of public buildings and cultural, educational and infrastructure facilities. No to chauvinist, racist or discriminating architecture, exploitative project proposals, suburbanizing single-family homes or speculating ventures. Our projects take their position in the urban cultural setting of film and so on. I mean, then it says what we're doing. But basically the no has been extremely heavily debated. And you know by who? Most of all by my colleague architects. They're telling me, but how can you say you're not doing one-family homes? And then I said, like, but I'm not saying I'm not building single-family homes. If you read correctly, I'm saying I'm not building suburbanizing single-family homes. Meaning, if we are about densifying our cities, I mean, we are all building single-family homes in terms of every apartment is such a thing. But in Austria, at least, there's so many single-family houses, and actually it's a translation mistake. It should say house. In German, it's obviously house. Architects have a problem when they argue we want to be sustainable, we want to be ecological, and so on. But then most of what we like to do is building single-family houses, yeah? Setting them in the center of nowhere. Not asking, or maybe asking, maybe knowing in our backyard, okay, there may be a lot of street going there, they may have to go by car all the time, we have all the infrastructure growing there and so on. But in fact, it's really, it's just simply lying to ourselves if we do that, while maintaining that we want to be so ecological. So in this sense, everybody can do single-family houses in suburbia or suburbanizing single-family houses. I just claim that I can also say I'm not doing it. And this is really funny in some lectures that it was really architects addressing me saying, this is our business and it's the most important we need to work about. And that can all be, but all I'm saying is as an architect you can also take position to say, I'm trying not to do it. Okay, so much for kind of, I know, a very, how should I say that, trying to provoke in the first sentences already. And the same I did maybe with my title. I was trying to respond to Jan and Marketta's lecture series by asking myself, what is it that is debating or conflicting space? And that's why I called it Conflictual Architecture, Stakes and Strategies. And I'm interested in, and I will try in the lecture, to show some of my projects in more detail, where it is about what is at stake for urban place, yeah, urban space, but also what are the stakes, what stakes in terms of what is it that we can give, or what is it that we can actually, in a way, negotiate with, and who is negotiating with you as an architect or urban designer with what stakes by themselves. And this is why I've kind of claimed to say I would like to talk about responsibility towards public space, but also that we are aware of the fact that it's not us alone that are producing public space. And also to be a bit critical about a certain idea of like, and I'm in my self-criticality, I'm fully aware of the fact that I may sound like this sometimes also, you know, like kind of wanting to do good, which of course is something we want, but by knowing that maybe once you try to do good, you also kind of have a position that may not be so good for others. So in this sense, this is why I wrote and also proposed to Jan to also talk about not just the successes of projects, but also about the dilemmas and the problems that you're facing as an architect, as Jan said, that I'm interested in also within a critical, theoretical approach towards urban space. All right. This is an image that nobody can read because it's much too small, but it could be readable. It's 141 excerpts of movies that show physical architectural models, like architecture models, and but in Hollywood films and so on. And this is a little side project that I'm doing together with my partner, who is a film theorist. It's called Mock-ups in Close-up. You can, I'm sorry, it's too small here. It's just showing this wide overview in real time, and another time it's a film that takes 2 hours, and it's a film by itself. Starts 1927 until 2012, or every year it's constantly growing. What is interesting there, aside from the fact that it's fun to look at architecture and architects being portrayed in Hollywood movies or any movies, it's also interesting how you can see, if you look at architectural physical models, that, for instance, in a high percentage of this film, these are in the film being destroyed. You know, people throw them off the table, they stamp on it, and so on. And it's one image of saying how architecture affects. You know, it's like kind of either you hate the building that the architect is proposing, or there's not enough money, or a dream doesn't come true, you don't have the money to build it, or so in this sense, I guess I'm also trying to spin this paranoia, which you already have anyway, that architecture certainly is all around us, and it's also the most important topic in movies, even though we don't know it yet. But we can also learn from that, because I tell you, if you watch this movie, you're ashamed, as I am, of our own profession. Architects are portrayed the most horrible, awful people in film. So, and we have to ask ourselves, why is that? Yeah? Why is it that we come along or across so bad? Yeah? We're such a kind of, people think of us not in a very good way most of the times. Okay. This is just brief overview that I've been publishing and dealing between exhibitions and texts, for instance, here in the context of about architecture in the context of everyday life, or about the changing conditions of work in post-Fordism, which may be one link to theory, setting up exhibitions. I'm going through that faster because I really want to have some time for the later projects. Setting up exhibitions where also always I'm trying to, I've been teaching for 15 years maybe, and it's always nice, sometimes we try to really build one-to-one situations or models, and then this is, for instance, where students fill the space in an exhibition about working moments and working furniture, but then relating to topics of meeting, of pressure, of hierarchy, and so on. It goes too deep into that, but just saying how important I believe that within teaching also, again, the testing of the real spatial momentum is, which you're doing a bit outside, I guess. Going out in the city, this is other workshops where we were touring around Graz and looking at trying to find new contemporary working spaces, which you don't find so easily because they may be on the 4th floor of a house, and you know, it's not so visible anymore. Public projects. This is really what I'm most interested about and what I've been happy to be able to be doing. This is a public installation I was doing together with the video artist Tito Steierl in Linz. And this was the conscious deconstruction or the conscious destroying of a facade of a Hitler building, if I just shorten it. This is a building from National Socialist time, one of Hitler's favorite buildings in Linz. But if you go pass by now, nothing talks about it. Yeah? There's no plate, nothing. And it was a building where people actually was thrown out of their houses, were sent to concentration camps. There was Jewish families living there before. Forced labor was brought in and treated very badly. So there's a whole history about not only this building, but many houses that are surrounding us. But maybe sometimes buildings are more extreme as that. And so what we did is basically research about the history of this building and draw a map of all these routes of the building, of the people. Where were they sent to? Some routes end up in Dachau and being killed. Others were like families being able to flee and stay in Los Angeles. And this route that is here drawn, this map that is drawn on the building, was then carved out of the building facade within 5 days publicly, yeah? Like and chronologically. Really, you could follow a person, so to say, either being deported and really up to, and the story of this people was being told physically or like in words and with names below in an exhibition. But you can imagine that I would say this makes public space, not so much the facade, but the fact that people up in the main, this is the main square of Linz, people kept looking, they kept asking, they were like, but what are you doing? And also it's completely stupid. You know, the people were like not knowing first about the project, they were like, why would you take off the plaster in such a pattern? I mean, you know, it would be much easier to do one corner and do it all the way. And by doing that, you make people ask, you make people read the posters, just showing here, this is below, yeah? This facade, it's an arcade, and this is where we installed a 24-hour exhibition that ran all the time with videos from the archive work of Tito Steierl. This is the map talking about all the stories about the construction of the building and also explaining what we were doing on the facade. And this was really most interesting momentum where you're saying, okay, yeah, I'm an architect, I did all the, you know, what are we good at? We're good at research, historic research. We are trained to do mappings. We are trained to do cartography. We're trained to ask construction companies, you know, we had contracts. I had to write the contract, the commission papers saying, you know, the money you get is exactly for that. I mean, basically it's pure architectural work but with such a content. This is what I find. This is where, you know, you cannot do only such projects, and you can never live from such projects, by the way. But these are the projects that I find that keep our architecture life also interesting, in the sense that it brings it back to these essential questions. So for 1 year the building was sitting there like this. The contrast is too big, I find. And constantly reminding the people of the history of this building and of their all daily surrounding. After 1 year we had to rebuild it, because the building is nearly listed as heritage. It's very heavily discussed. You know, can you list a National Socialist building? But then, would you not? Why not? I mean, what is the history of so many buildings? So basically, now it's completely gone. The project. It looks just like before. The building facade is blue. That's where we want to get to. This image is the test. It looks good like this also, but no. A bit. You see how it's not completely blue, but the color comes in. It's fine. Okay. Thank you. This building is green. No, just joking. This is the green space in orange. No, it's the orange light of the bulbs, but I hope it's light enough. It's a theater in Vienna. It's called Brut, and it's meant to be just like this. It was we didn't have any money, but it's right in the center, and we made every decision on spot. This was like a joyful project, because there was 4 students from the Angewandte, an architect colleague from Graz, and me, together with the new directors, and we went into the space, and it was offices before, and we took off stuff. We went through the entire old theater and looked for all the lamps that we found not in use, and every theater needs a luster, you know, needs a pompous light. So basically, we constructed this light, built it, and it's now hanging in the foyer. We had no money for a floor. We found a terrace by the neighbor, with the neighbor. We asked the neighbor. It was kind of a fancy restaurant, having packed this terrace wood. We asked it. They didn't even give it to us for free, but we could get it very cheaply. They didn't need it anymore. So kind of all the plates were taken down and cleaned. And it became the floor. And this is right after doing the floor. It's not even cleaned yet. But what is very nice, what you can see here, and maybe this is where the term diagram in architecture is really a useful one, because this is kind of the outcome of a diagram of forces, in a way, very simply. The wood was old and black from the sun, and it was like this from the outside. So we put it in. We put in black rubber in between, and then we said to the carpenter, just take off until it's rather flat. And so you create a pattern that you cannot design, and you can never you can never paint it or anything like this. It's just from taking care of how much do you take away. I guess it's it looks like I like best to take away rather than to build up. So the bar looks like this now. It's very simple but very effective, right in the center of Vienna. This is Karlskirche. So if you come to Vienna, you can go dance on this balcony in the center of Vienna, easy, low budget, and look to the Karlskirche on Karlsplatz. And another public building I did just actually 300 meters across this bar is for the Austrian Film Museum, which basically, to keep it short, this was the facade before I worked on it, and it was the leftover of a large project of Hans Hollein, you know, this one of the Austrian architecture stars, who spent a lot of money on this wing, on this roof, and also on the Albertina, which is a quite important museum on top. And at the end, there was no money left for the Austrian Film Museum, which is the little, you know, other kind of alternative movie, cinema, theater that was also located there, behind this wall. So, hoppla. So what we did is we started to ask for money and to kind of got together some money from the Burghauptmannschaft. And actually, what we could do was 4 cuts, you know, again, just get through the wall. The wall, by the way, is 2.5 meters thick. So basically what we created was little spaces. And what you see here are these 3 openings, with actually little water fountain figures here. These are spying water, just from the little roofs. And it's also the logo of the Film Museum. But what is most interesting to me is what we tried to do within this depth was like having inside sitting, having a bar outside, really playing the inside out. So basically if we're outside like this, it's inside like this. And little compartments, just few, 3 of them, becoming, so to say, an extension of this bar and the space. But most of all, and that's, oops, now I'm missing one image. Well, I had one image prepared, I thought, where right outside here, where there was nothing before, now there's a shiny garden in summer, plus the place that was completely empty is just by the 3 cuts in this wall, suddenly is activated. People can have a coffee outside, drink outside, or also just hang out, wait in front of the cinema for the cinema inside. And exactly this inside out, this kind of in between the facade, yeah? What's the space that we sometimes just draw as a line, yeah? Kind of the border between the inside and the outside. This is what has been and is interesting me continuously. Like here, for instance, in the kindergarten that we built, where basically again we're testing or trying to say, okay, the facade is not just a line, yeah, but there's something about being outside but inside, or inside and outside. So after that kind of, this is intro overview of the context of public projects. I'm finally, well, this is last image of the kindergarten that I was just showing. But I'm going to come to the project I want to talk about in more detail. You know, if you build publicly as an architect, you realize suddenly that you're building nearly only disciplinary institutions. Like Michel Foucault was saying, you know, the school is like kindergarten, is maybe like the prison, is maybe like the hospital. And you realize public buildings are the school, the kindergarten, the hospital, etc., the housing, and so on. You know this Foucault text about the panopticon, and also the way, as Michel Foucault is within disciplinary, the thinking of disciplinary modes, comparing different typologies of architecture. And I realized, oh my God, I'm really also specializing in such buildings, which at the end, yes, we have to face ourselves. What is it that public buildings are about? That doesn't mean that they need to be and they should not be disciplinary machines, for sure not. But in fact, I'm coming to the really, to a project and a building type that I really am not happy about, which is a prison. And to be honest, I would, as an architect, refuse to build a prison, ever, from my understanding and my interests. But I was asked if I was interested in a competition for an existing prison in order to do art in architecture. And it was really difficult for me, because I was like, okay, should I do that or not? Would you do that? I mean, would you say, and the people were a very critical team of curators, they said, well, it's a competition between artists and architects, and they think it's important because it's already an existing building. As we see here, it's an old building. In a prison, it's for up to 18 months. People are imprisoned. And it's a horrible space, and couldn't you make it better? So in this sense, I was it was very, I really didn't know if I wanted to do anything there. And we were toured in the prison, so we were given a tour. We went inside. We learned that you cannot open any door in the prison by yourself, obviously. You know, if you spend 2 hours or 3 hours in a prison, even as a visitor, the moment you go outside, you forget that you could open the door yourself. I was really standing there waiting for somebody to help me out, just because you lose this notion of normal logical space. And while touring through the prison, the kind of the competition was free to do just anything. And then we said, but where's the courtyard? And then they said, well, this is the courtyard, the one that you see here. And I was like, what? You know, but where is the football field, or where is the sports place? Huh? And then people said, well, there is no such thing. We don't have any space for that. Why? Because we are building from the 30s. This building is also listed. You know, we're in Middle Europe. The cities are already built. The prisons are already built. We have... everything is there, but what we need to do, and what will be a big task for architects in the future for sure, is how do we rebuild our cities, or how are we going to modify them? So I couldn't believe that this was the place that people who are imprisoned should spend their 1 hour a day outside. It was really shocking to me. And then I asked, but what if they want to, and this is the men's courtyard. Yeah? So I asked, but what if they want to play football? And they said to me, well, you know, they don't want to play football. I'm like, really? But why would they not want to play football? And then they said, no, they only want to play Nintendo. Okay. And then, you know, I kept asking, then I found out that, of course, they like to play football first. But then they always got hit either by the rough wall or by the asphalt. And once a prisoner is hurt, it gets really complicated. Yeah? So actually, they forbid them to play football. And after forbidding them to play football, they started to play Nintendo. And now they argue that they only like to play Nintendo. And they don't like to play football anymore. So what you hear as an architect is you have to always question it, you know, further back and back and back. Because it's such, these logics, we know how they go, right? One argument gives the next argument, and the next one, and so on, and then suddenly it's logical. No, they don't like to play football. So this is really what made me then get ambitious and join the competition. And I'm like, this is impossible. So I proposed a project called Draußen im Gefängnis, playing again with this. I like to use words in order to kind of also convince people and myself about projects. So what is it to be outside in the prison? Yeah, this is this kind of momentum, of mini momentum of doing that. And saying, okay, if this is the men courtyard and this is the woman courtyard, I didn't show you the woman courtyard now, it's the second project that I can't talk about yet because it's not yet finished. But it has two different concepts, both playing, well, in the one, asphalt, I want to bring in green, and certainly, just to keep it short, the women courtyard was all green plants. You know, women like to do planting and like to be in the grass, and men like the asphalt. So the idea was also to switch that quite a bit, to say, okay, let's bring green also into the men's courtyard and some asphalt into women's courtyard. So this is a different concept, playing also about sight. But this is the men's courtyard. And I was looking at it, and everybody said, like, but you can't bring a football field in there. And I said, like, but I can, or at least I will propose it. And in fact, yes, it doesn't have space, but where it doesn't have, we're just squeezing it into it. So basically, we said, okay, well, where the football field ends and hits a ramp, it makes a fold. And where it ends on this side, it folds up the wall. So basically, that's the model that we did. And that's the way it looks like within the construction site. The football field, this is quite a wide-angle image. The football field size is Bambini size. It really exists, yeah, for small kids. There's no larger space outside. And it doesn't even fit. So we had to kind of make this wave fold up the grass. It's I'm having this nice picture here, which I like in a way because it looks as if it was real grass, but it certainly isn't, because in this courtyard you couldn't have real grass because there's hardly any sun coming in. But what we did here is we had to test it that the water really flows off. Yeah? So this is, I guess, the only moment that this grass field was watered. And what you also see here, in none of these images you see people, because of anonymity and security reasons. You can never photograph people in there, except ourselves working there. So that's why these images are empty. But within also doing that, you can imagine that we had to convince so many people. First of all, of course, this costs money. And why would you spend money on prisoners? Why on earth? Yeah? So you have to start arguing in this sense, that it makes sense. And there was a director of the prison who, and of course, something we realized, I wasn't aware of that in the beginning. So I won first of all, of course, I won the competition, and that's when the process started of realizing it. And while realizing it and doing the design, I found out that especially in this prison, which is actually a prison for up to 18 months, the people who are imprisoned for life are the people working there. I didn't think of that. I mean, they're not, of course, they're leaving in the evening, but they're there all the time, yeah? And kind of, so it was most important to talk to them. And they were, of course, I'm sorry to say so, but some simply are really racist. Also from their experience, everyday experience in prison. It was awful because you had to watch so much your own voice. And I must say that because I promised you to talk about dilemmas and problems within architects. Many times doing this project, I was so worried that my language would also change. You're in this context of that you'd always need to negotiate why you find it important to spend money there and why you find it important to do that. The director of the prison was interesting because he helped convince the people, the guards, to realize it also, because one concern was there's cells all around this courtyard, that the prisoners would for sure throw down the milk bags and everything to destroy this courtyard once it's built. And then this whole argumentation started about, but why don't we try it? In the sense of like saying, if you build something nicer, the courtyard now is light, it's green, the color is like it has completely different atmosphere. And he convinced himself and all the people and also the clients to try it out. And if it gets really destroyed, well, so what? Then you take it away and so on. Until now, this is kept perfectly. 2 weeks after the opening, and I was there, and then people said, it's completely like we thought. They are vandalizing it completely. And I was looking inside, I was like, but what's happening? And I was like, can't you see? It's full of cigarette butts. Yeah, there was cigarette butts all the way. And I was like, yes, it's really awful. And then said like, but where's the ashtray? They didn't place an ashtray. So, again, they want to convince you it's not working, but it's simply not working because we forgot this one single detail. Me also, I could have said, please put an ashtray there. So we put an ashtray, and since then, there's no cigarette butts anymore there. Yeah, and then, of course, these images kind of toured a little bit through the magazines, because, of course, people thought it was interesting. And what I intended to do was a critique of the space while proposing something for the space. So how can you critique the injustice, if you want to? I mean, this is really about justice or injustice. I find it extremely unjust, unfair, that there's such a small space in this prison for the time to go out. So how do you, I thought by showing that it's too small, exactly that, or exactly that, I also show that it's too small. But I also propose something, which is simply here, people really like to sit a lot, and it's the place where you hang out and where there's some sun. And here it was nice because after a time, even the prison guard said, well, but it's cool because here anyway people like to walk up the walls, or to climb the walls. It's a saying, I don't know if you have the same, if you get angry or so, you run up the walls. Or we did also think about the possibility in prison, a lot of new sport new sports were developed. So we thought actually they could play football and combine it with parkour. And so in this sense, you know, you have a kind of completely new sports invented. So in a way, it was proposing something, but trying to critique the space. And then a journalist in Austria asked me, within another context, he was writing a piece on the Berlin Wall. And he said, can I use your project? I want to write about walls. And then, you know, you read in the newspaper how the architect GABU HEINDL wanted to make the wall disappear. It's like, no, I didn't want, you know. And I'm trying to say, how can you think you're doing that, but you completely misunderstood. And he really thought that I'm trying to make the injustice disappear when I was thinking that I was showing it. So in a way, you know, it's just simply in this sense also, if you may say so, unsuccessful, or at least it's still, and maybe that's also the only way we can work. We can never work completely, you know, assured and completely one-directional or kind of one-dimensional. Well, these are not prisoners, because otherwise they wouldn't be in there, but this is kind of part of the team. The prison director and the construction company guys. And I like to show that because we sometimes forget to say architects never work alone. So it's very important to also give credits to the people who are helping with you to realize something. Okay, and this is, I guess, the trapped architect in the dilemma of the folded up wall. You know, it's fun, but it's not, but it's also, you can't escape it. Okay. So this is the next disciplinary machine. This is a school. Schools in Austria, as I guess everywhere, have a long tradition, and one that is thing that is being heavily debated at the moment in Vienna is how can we get out a little bit of the classroom structure of the cells. You know? This is a building from the 60s by a very nice architect, and I won a competition to expand it. Why? Because they did this competition because they're lacking space. They have containers. There's a lot of container schools at the moment in Austria. They're lacking a sports field, and most of all, you can see on the right, this is how school teachers' rooms look like in Austria, but I think all around the world maybe. Not enough space, books all over the place, and here again there's this whole, like a lot of people in Austria at the moment bitching or critiquing teachers because they're not in the school, they are like not working enough, I'm quoting them, and so on. Again, looking at the spatial conditions, you would totally understand. If I had such a working place, I wouldn't be happy neither to be working there in the afternoon or lunchtime even, or more time than needed. So one important thing is to actually change the conditions of working for the teachers. Also for the kids, but also for the teachers. Well, this is basically the way it's set up then, in the 60s. And this is what we're doing now, a whole part of for a classroom wing and a sports hall. And the situation is very interesting. It's in Wiener Neustadt, south of Vienna, because this is the school, and these are the parts that I'm adding. And the school is a gymnasium. Not gymnasium is sports hall, but high school. And here is another school for people who learn a profession while going to school, and the red thing is a primary school. Now in Austria it's like this. The red primary school is organized and paid and structured by the city. The yellow school is, because it's a professional school, is organized by the country, and the orange one is organized by the state. They all don't talk to each other, and and so something to organize something like what you have in Sweden or in Norway or in Denmark at the moment. There's a whole discussion about campus schools, to say, okay, how can you combine synergies and forces, or also there's a big discussion about Fensterskole, what is called, that's the term in Sweden, which says schools are public buildings and they should propose something also to the public. You know, they have a library, why cannot the library be open for everybody when it's not used for the school on the weekends? With the sports halls, usually it's like this. So in this condition, it's quite interesting because what they did, the two directors of the schools, they did something completely illegal. They had both students use the same green field. Can you imagine? And you know what's illegal really? If something would happen there with the wrong students, the director would be sentenced, yeah? Because it's their responsibility. So what we managed to do now with the building is that the sports hall is co-financed between these two organizations, which is already amazing. Plus, with building that and opening this sports field, we are legalizing what they had been done before. But not only this sounds more dramatic, but it's really helping the two schools, and it's one of a few cases where, and I hope that is starting, I don't know how it's here in the Czech Republic, that schools start to really use and work together in order to more create a campus and use their resources. So, and then as architects, you know, we don't need to draw, we already won the competition and so on, we don't need to draw such a diagram. But we draw it, and we always gave it to the country, we gave it to the city, we gave it to the state. And now the nice thing is they are using this and saying like, you know what we did there? We are co-financing. So in a way, you know, as architects, we have to give the arguments for them to use them, and at the end hopefully it comes back as their ideas. But, but this is one way of like stimulating it and possibly make it happen somewhere else. So basically, this is a model. We work a lot with models of the classroom part and the sports field, and it gets too much maybe into detail how it's organized. We've been working a lot about such issues. How can you find extra space? You know, in school you hardly have ever space, but exactly what you're doing here, sitting in the window, is something kids love. But usually in the kind of disciplinary machine of the school, you know, you have like windows, and so basically what we did have extra deep, large windows designed, again this inside-out issue, plus the windows are exactly sitting height, so you can really sit in there, pull yourself your table, and on the other side in the south, we made deep balconies and have table height on the windows, so you can sit there and look outside. It's very simple. I mean, it looks now very simple, but I think it's these moments where we make a difference. You know, you can build windows or windows, and you can ask yourself, can a window be more or be a window? And this is where I feel we have to also create more expertise against that. You know, architects are not so badly portrayed in movies. And then we faced another dilemma, because of course we wanted to create a completely new school. But completely new schools are very difficult to create. I actually just won another competition, I don't have the project here now, which was really a new school and much more radical. And at the end now it's not, at least I'm not going to build it. I think it's very, very sad story. But this one I won, I guess, by actually being not so radical. That's something one doesn't say so. One doesn't like to say so loudly. You know, we architects want to be radical and we want to create something really new. And when we did the competition, I guess we were just not yet in a radical mood, or I don't know. But once you win a state competition in Austria, you have to ask yourselves, I was not radical. You know, it's kind of, it must be somehow too close to possibility. And it's really like this. But on the other hand, I started to like it a little bit, because friends of mine have just also built a school in Vienna, which is much more different than the schools we know now. And they have forced it to get it built. It's Berlage, it's a very interesting project, you should look at it. But what it did was like, it grew out so much of money, like it exploded money-wise, and people can't really imagine it yet, that suddenly the city of Vienna wants to do much less newer schools, then we're already there. So in a way, the big issue is always like how fast does architecture evolve? Yeah? In a way, I have to say what we already kind of, you cannot imagine how long I was fighting for these extra spaces, because usually schools are 4 times 60 square meters. Not 4 times 60 square, sorry. Every classroom has 60 square meters, you have some corridor and so on. So I was like, no, that's no way. So now we have 65 square meters. We have the window niches, which are not counting, plus we have 15 square meters between 2 classrooms that can be opened. And what happens now is that we suddenly can create 60, 50, 60, 135 square meter spaces out of the same system. It again looks so simple, but the fact that you fight for this 15 square meters in between, extra space, and then the system is that the goal was to get rid of the 2 spaces that you usually have in a school. You have 60 square meter classrooms and the corridor, but you don't have 15, 30, 40, 100, 120, 150 square meters. So in a way you have to start to negotiate. And why do you need the spaces? Because people, like the teaching methods are changing into not just what we're doing here, frontal lecturing, but group work, two classroom, two classes work together, 5 groups of 20 people working there and there. To be honest, and actually at this moment we're lacking money amongst us. I'm not saying this in Vienna. If we lack money, I'm just hoping that that I could convince them not to build that. Because once we're not building the inside walls, I would really have the kind of free open space that could completely freely be redistributed. So in a way, you're trying to make possibly the best of what's happening. But in fact, this is just simply saying, okay, in a school, you cannot build structural walls. I believe that, because schools are changing. We can, as architects, not now say what's the pedagogical concept in 20 years. And once, like, if we frame that, we are framing that now by the walls we build, but the structural system is this way that you only have these columns where you can actually then change the space completely, but in a long-term run. And for the teachers, there was obviously also no money, but we did a very simple trick. This was the space before, in many different compartments. And, we're just taking out walls, trying to make a large space, and also using the corridor as extra space. The only problem now is that because of lack of money, it could be that it's not being built. So we are like, that can't be. And believe me, the last weeks I've spent, I don't know how many hours, trying to save money and to reorganize stuff in order to keep what is always the last thing, The clients is like, but this we really don't need, It's like, it's just the teachers. So it's basically, and it won't get my project in any magazine. What you're doing here is something that is not, the new parts, maybe yes. If it was about the classical, okay, how do you, what's the end result of a project? But I think to fight for having this being built, which is just taking out walls and putting in beams, and at the end it's more space, but it's not a high-gloss photo. But this is something we need to fight about, because this is where nobody takes advocacy for. Yeah, and the next thing, believe it or not, is threatened as well, because the last thing that is being built and where money is available is the outdoor spaces. Because also if money runs out, or in fact it's not that we're running out of money, but we have a construction company which is specialized in claim management. I don't know if you have that phenomenon here as well, but believe me, keep off it, or let's try to ban these companies. It's a company that, okay, let's describe it this way. In Austria, we have the Bundesvergabegesetz, which regulates how commissions are given to companies. It's a very strict process, and it's a very good process. It's based on on European community regulations, in order to prevent corruption. Yeah? In order to prevent, like, me giving the commission directly to you because you're my friend and so on. So that brings us into a situation, and I completely support that. I think we should all support that. It's just a problem because it can bring up a real big new issue. I'm forced as an architect to choose or to give the commission to the cheapest, to the company that claims to build the cheapest. In Switzerland, it seems they have a regulation where within the system, and once you control, you know, you get like 20 bids, and then as an architect you control which one is the cheapest. Switzerland says take out the cheapest and the most expensive first, and then look. Yeah? And this is so smart, I find. Now in Austria says like take the cheapest. So, which is so, look, it sounds also smart, but what these companies do, they check your documents. It's like 350 pages that we wrote over months. And they guess, where could you be too low in estimation and where are you too high? Now it gets this way that we get prices that are completely irregular. Believe me, 1 cubic meter of concrete costs 0.30 cents. Yeah? But the iron for the concrete costs 8 euros per kilo, which is 8 times the normal price. And the company, and if you actually within controlling, you ask, but how is this possible? Yeah, because it's on our internal organization and so on, but at the end it's purely that. They check, yeah, and they think, for sure they will need more iron, yeah? But for sure they have put enough concrete, they won't need enough concrete. So for the concrete they will not lose money if we do less, but for the steel they will ask you for much more money. So I'm now faced actually with a company that is really rushing us into the construction site just in order to make use of the speculative prices. And the problem is actually, I mean, we are fighting that, of course, but it keeps the construction from it's really the bad, like, it's an awful side of architecture. And why I'm saying this is, now the client says, like, but you made a very nice plan for the outdoor spaces, but I think we'll just cancel them. So we're just trying to fight not to cancel them, but it's this, it's really, I guess it's really the moment where I'm really frustrated with this process. That's why I'm telling you. But it's also interesting how it shows how architecture is linked to so many things. It's literally linked to how do you fight corruption. Yeah, but what's the answer to that? So anyway, it would be nice, and I'm sure we're going to some way realize it, that by the structure of the building, where we continued the basic structure that was already set up in the 60s. We put 2 new elements, and by that we managed to create many different courtyards of different sizes that now we give different concepts and qualities. Well, and in 1 year I can tell you how much of that is realized, but believe me, I will do my very best to make sure it will be realized. All right. Okay, and now if we have time, I would have one last project to talk about. Yeah? Maybe I'm talking too fast again. Am I talking too fast? No? Sometimes when my boyfriend sits in here, he would say, you're talking too fast. But he's not here today, so either you have to tell me or...
No, don't worry, it's perfect, and we have time even for 2 projects if you want.
Well, then I would have to bring it out of the web page. No. This is not my project, because this is Otto Wagner's image. It's like, it's nice, huh? Well, you know Otto Wagner is our hero from the past in Vienna. And he was, like, as an urban planner, he was involved in many big urban schemes. One of them being a subway, not subway, but highway. No, not highway, it's also the wrong word. But a train system that now is the U6. And also, but many other things, but also the regulation and the design of the Danube Canal. This is the Danube Channel that is running right through the center of Vienna. And it's basically the most central water line, but it's not the Danube that is, you know, the main river. Actually, you can see it here. If that's Vienna is even larger, but this is the Danube going through Vienna, and this, in orange, are the moments when, when the Danube channel is leaving the Danube and going right into the center. This is the first district, and then through, and then at the end getting back to the Danube. The city of Vienna has some sort of regulation for public space that says everybody who wants to do something in the city has to go to Magistrat 19 and actually propose the project, and then it has to be checked that it's within the quality of good public appearance or space and so on. And this Magistrat, or a city office, has organized a competition about a year ago, where I, together with a partner, Susan Graub, participated, about a kind of, how would you say that, regulation or concept for the Danube Canal. For the entire space, not exactly the entire space, but basically from one bridge to the other. And what we proposed, and they were a little bit, you have to imagine the situation. Investors want to be there because it's really, I mean, you can imagine, the cities want to be on the water today. Yeah? Every city, waterfront, Barcelona, London, you call it, Paris, and so on. So also Vienna, of course, is happy if the city life gets to the water. And until today, the idea was that only private investors can develop, because also Vienna has hardly any money. Plus, so the investors, of course, know that it's good because you will make money there. And it's very central, and it's water and so on. So the competition, and these investors have to go to MA19, to this city department that I talked about, and show their plans and say, we want to build a restaurant there and an outdoor sitting field there, and I don't know, like there's screens for watching football games, and you name it. Yeah? Some are building larger stuff, some are building smaller stuff. And MA19, our clients, always has to say at the end, usually at the end of the process, no, but we find it's a bit too big, or but it's not very nice. It's a very reactive condition of the city. And I'm talking to you, I'm totally aware of the situation, and I got very much aware when I was doing that, or my workshops. There's a big difference, certainly, between Brno, or the Czech Republic, and Vienna and Austria in its history. Vienna has a long history of paternalistic social democrat government. Yeah? We have been social democratically governed for centuries. Centuries is too much, but decennia. I would rewrite history here. Don't forget it. Quote GABU HEINDL, for centuries Vienna was social democrat. And people are very worried about it. It's very paternalistic, Vienna wants to regulate everything, but Vienna also wants to make good and give space to young people, to children, and so on. And I think it's not so bad. It's just that there was a time when it was maybe so a time when a lot of people said, please, please, please deregulate. Yeah? There's too many regulations, and we need to be more flexible and more free. And this really worked. Now the city regulators, the city government, is so afraid to regulate because they are so, being bitched about. It's like you're destroying every idea and you're not letting anything happen. And and you're like Kafka. You know this story by Kafka when you go into the Schloss or so, and or the Prozess, and you knock on every door and you don't find anybody and you never get a permission for anything. This is what the city government people are really being named. Yeah? That they're like in Kafka, not regulating. So they're so afraid that they started to be completely, they're like, yeah, fine, do it, do whatever you want, we're so cool. We're like, oh, that's really nice, why don't you do it? So in a way, to be honest, sometimes I really nearly wish the Kafka person back, because at least when it comes to public space, why? Public space, and this is, for instance, let's say, as an overview, this is the channel we're talking about. It runs through the city of Vienna, and the city of Vienna is now we have a red-green government. It's the first time in history, and Maria Vasilako from the Green Party is even the planning director of the city, or I don't know how to translate it correctly. And because they believe in the quality of the city and in the, let's say, even the fairness, the justice of the city in times that will get rougher. The city provides you with infrastructure, the city provides you with jobs and so on. The goal is to densify Vienna by the size of Graz. So in Graz there's 200,000 people living, or even more, you know it. And Vienna wants to grow within the city with 200,000 people. So you have to imagine a whole other city being placed inside. And this is where our argument starts. If you densify the city, you must make sure to keep spaces free. Yeah, you cannot densify everything. So there's a space that runs through the city and is a linear park. Yeah? And is now, everybody wants to get there and have like a party zone and so on. And we are saying, okay, let's fight for it to be kept free, or at least to only give permission to build something there for a short time. So we called our project Donau Canal Party Tour. We surprisingly won the competition, which was surprising in the sense that actually they asked more for, now I'm coming back to the Kafka story, the city is already so shy that they think, what if we at least told the investors the color of the building they want to build? You know, that's what they could do. If you come to them and say, can we build that? They could say, yes, if you build it in grey, you can do it. So I'm a little bit exaggerating it, but in a way they thought, why don't we ask architects how the Donau Canal should look like in terms of aesthetics? Huh? And I think that's completely the right question. The only question is, what does aesthetics mean? Or what does public space mean? Yeah? Or the aesthetics of public space. Is public space better if everything is in the same color, well chosen? Or is public space better if there's the possibility of development continuously, if public space is not given to private investors only that make money out of public space, but also make you not be able to use it anymore so properly? So we proposed, maybe a bit too cryptic, but that's also good in competitions, either less radical or cryptical. So we said we want to make a Donau Canal party tour. Of course, people liked party tour a lot because Vienna is all about music, and also the channel, the Donau Canal, as the name says, is a relic from industrial times. Yeah? A channeling of water is comes from within the industrial city, and now, as we also know, there's all this theory about how industrial cities become cultural cities. So we are, of course, playing with that. We're saying, yes, this needs to become a cultural zone. It's a very important recreation zone for the city of Vienna. And we proposed really a notational tool to say, okay, let's stretch it for a moment and really think it as this linear space. This we only use actually for abstract rhythmizing of infrastructure, but then we came back to, because it's very important, we obviously continue to work on the north, on the actual topographical situation. So what we did is we kind of took down the notion of all of the space, looked at it in terms of a linear green corridor. When talking to, the city of Vienna has many departments, and one department is also looking at all the green space, ecological issues. It was super interesting when we learned that it's not only people walking down there using it as a linear space, but it's also birds, it's Fledermäuse, these animals that have this bats. It's amazing, animals that also need it as a public linear corridor. So what we are also proposing is to fill in again, so to say, missing greens in different typologies. we're noting down all the, this is, I should have brought some images. Actually, this, I realized that I should have showed you like the atmosphere there. Now I'm only, doing the architect's thing, just showing you maps and drawings. That's maybe not so great. But we went through there, like hours by hours, and really noted down, okay, where is the toilet? Where was the toilet and why is it not there anymore? I mean, it sounds so stupid, but at the end, when you're in a park or in a public space, sometimes you need the toilet, or you want to drink water without buying water, or you would want to put your bicycle somewhere. The parent with the trolley wants to be able to go down there with a lift. Elderly people need, not only elderly, but young people also want to have benches from time to time, and so on. So we really looked into what's the quality of the space. And mostly we found things that we wanted to take out. Hoppala. So we noted down all sorts of infrastructure, or we're still doing this. And then we were inventorizing all the different benches. It's very nice, the spaces, again, in Vienna. There is just along this water line, there's 10 different city districts that are organizing the space. So every city district, of course, has a color for the bench and has a design for the bench. And you know what? We don't even want to change it. I think it's nice to have this heterogeneity. And again, this was a bit, I guess, what the city thought that we would propose. Let's have one bench, one corporate identity throughout the space. But we said, no, we don't want the corporate identity, but we want to ask ourselves, why can there be such a horrible difference between the public bench, in between 5 different ways of putting trash down, or the private sitting area? It's the Tel Aviv beach, one of the nicer areas, absolutely nice. But I mean, this is horrific, isn't it? I mean, it's crazy. And it's just simply, it's the overlay of many different issues of like the one compartment of the city of Vienna not talking to the other one. Somebody says we need more trash bins there, nobody says where should it be, and so on. So they bring it, oops, put there. It's very difficult to move it somewhere else. It's really a complete mess. So what we're trying to do is to organize, to choreograph, if you want to, as architects, to say, okay, we want to make sure that with little means, it's possible to have a quality of public quality as much as the private investors' quality, because we believe that in the future, and the more dense the city gets, and the more hard the times get, it must be possible throughout the space to be able to sit publicly nicely without needing to consume. And this is, of course, the difference, because you cannot sit there without having a drink being paid. Not that that shouldn't be there neither, but we want to, and that's what the name Party 2 is about, we want to make sure that there's a rhythm of both. So in this sense, we're working our way through this space, and then based on a master plan that was done before, where basically the city of Vienna agreed that this area should be commercially developable. We're looking into it more closely and building something like a Nichtbebauungsplan. And this has been also very heavily debated. I would translate it into non-building plan. There's something like building plan regulations in every city, I'm sure also in your city. There's usually Widmungspläne. There's a lot of tools in urban planning that regulate space, but by the way what can be done. And we are saying, we are making a plan that says what cannot be done, or the Nichtbebauungsplan. I believe me, this word has been so heavily debated, everybody's like, it's too negative. You're saying no, you're saying not non-building plan. So we are really forced to find a positive term for the negative, but so long, so for the last month, it has helped us a lot. Because I think it's, at least in Vienna, there's no culture at the moment at all, and we're slowly building it up again, of advocating the public. There's like, I'm always saying, okay, there's 15 investors down there, but there's 1.9750 Viennese that are not talking, or that are not having, so to say, a lawyer. The investor brings his lawyer and says to the city of Vienna, I want this, I need this, and so on. But who is doing that for the many people that also need this and this and this? And now you could go and say, let's make a participation project, you know, let's ask all the Viennese what they want, and so on. This is also being done a lot. Or we're trying to do the mixture of saying, okay, I also believe in strong planning in the sense that you make it public what you do, but you're also not waiting for, you know, the whole process to be nicely put to find so many. I mean, we are not designing the space, but we're keeping it free. So we're doing a non-building plan that simply says if that was meant to be the part given to an investor possibly, we're looking at it and saying, no, hold on. We want every citizen in Vienna to always be able to walk freely on the waterfront. Yeah? So all waterfront line is to be kept public with enough distance, yeah, for bicycle, for walking and so on. And then every stair that comes down is kept free. And also immediately the access to the water. So if we set up a whole set of rules that then looks like this, that describe that at the end, the place where something can be built is completely minimized. Okay, this is now where things can happen. It's fine if they're blue or red. I don't mind. You know, if it's not about the color, but it's about structural organization of space. And you know, on purpose, all of that. This tool doesn't exist. There's no such thing as a non-building plan in city planning, but we're using the language of it. This is totally on purpose. FR, FZ, RZ, DB, star. You know, you need a technical language to be strong against investors. Yeah, they come and they say, but you're so uncool, you know. We are bringing such a cool space down there, and you always and then if you bring out the map and said, but it's a FR area. This is important, you know. It's FR star, yeah, and it says FZ, and FZ means that and that and that. So it's kind of we're playing with this. We're using it very much on purpose. It's absolutely unsexy now, the way it looks and so on, but that's exactly what it needs to be. And here you see how we are also thinking this three-dimensionally. We're saying, I mean, by now they have put so much stuff in there. We're saying you cannot build where the space of the stairs come down, so that, you know, put things in front, so that really you can arrive at the walking and the pleasure of this linear space is continuously given. So we're drawing the entire plan according to these rules and regulations. And you can see suddenly, this is a staircase by Otto Wagner, a central condition, a symmetric condition. If you walk in a space now, you don't see it, because already you can see how the things are built somewhere. And by us regulating it, you suddenly see the structure again. So basically, the non-doing is just as much designing as the doing, by kind of taking away consciously. Certainly we cannot take away what is there, and we are also not kind of, you know, we're not radical saying build that down. That's not the plan, but all of the commission, all of the contracts are temporary there, so they have to be renewed. So we're building up a plan that can maintain for centuries again, for centuries, no, for decennia, for quite some time, in order to say, okay, when in 5 years something else is being done, you can base it on that, and then, so to say, slowly organize this free or so. And this maybe is the last area. Stupid, I don't have an image here. This is a historic staircase on the water, on this river. It's called Fischerstiege. Yeah, and here, next time, it's the first time I talk about this project, but I now already know that I must bring pictures of that. This is a ship. That was a party ship. I don't know if you know it, somebody who has been in Vienna. And here is a beautiful stair going down, a little bit like in this drawing, but this is another one, public. And the area was given to an investor some time ago, who had some restaurants there, and he supposedly went bankrupt. You know how it is, like whatever the reasons are. And now the city of Vienna is desperately, and because the city of Vienna has also kind of put some money inside in this project, is desperately looking for a new investor to take over. It's very complicated contract issues. And there's the ship. And when we started with the project, there was already one investor who had a great idea. He said, like, these stairs are great, but I don't care about them. The location is great. And you have nice stairs going down to the water. And he had an idea to build like this over it, over the stairs. I mean, no proper architect would do that. Anyway, we said, according to our regulations, these stairs have to be kept entirely free, because all stairs and all water front has to be kept public. So we started an extreme fight with the kind of some people in the city. Actually, by now the project is dead, so we won in a way. But we argued the city of Vienna has no money at the moment to ever build, if you want, new stairs. Now you have already, so to say, a whole kind of nice stair momentum. Why not keep that and make it public? And also, like, you could never, not having the picture here, but it's very nice. It's quite steep. It doesn't have any railings. You would never be able to or allowed to build it anymore, because we have rules of anti-discrimination, which are very good rules, but they would not allow you to make kind of a stair where not everybody could go down. These rules would not allow you today to build Venice anymore, or to build that anymore without railings and so on. So in a way, we have to also treasure what we have from the past, because it was also other times in terms of regulations, in terms of building techniques, in terms of structure. I sound like a conservative architect here, right? I'm definitely not, but I think it's really about this looking into what's the condition there. Now, there was the investor that nearly won to develop this area, won by saying, but I will give you 4 toilets. And I was really shocked. Can you imagine? The city of Vienna is so desperate, I would say, maybe like many other cities, that because they cannot maintain and don't have the money to maintain public toilets down there, they would say, yes, please develop a project there, as long as you keep your toilets open to the public. And now we started, we're not successful yet neither, but we said, but why don't we try to find other ways to finance these 4 toilets and keep the stairs free? All I'm saying here is, like, I'm just wanted to discuss or show you how sometimes, or at least I see myself at the moment, in a situation where I'm putting extreme energies into something that is nothing, but exactly the nothing, the keeping it free, is what we're kind of fighting for or arguing for. In the meantime, the ship is burnt down, obviously consciously. So we call this like warm abtragen, to demolish warmly, or if you burn something down you demolish it by heat. And it's like a complete corruption moment. I'm like, again, this is a very curious, just one spot of this large project where it's interesting how much you can debate as an architect with him. And as the last thing is what we proposed as an additional thing to the investors project, we related to the concept of folies that we know from the Paris garden. Is this the next lecture already? I hope not.
No.
Okay. And we said, okay, let's try, and we're now talking to Kunst im öffentlichen Raum, which is an institution about art in public space, or to say, okay, we need to get other attractions also down into the space next to keeping it free. That talks, similar to the concept of folie. I don't know if you know it. It's a landscape concept from the past, saying a folie is a structure in the landscape that has no function, or no immediate purpose. It's an extension of the landscape. So we had proposed during the competition to say, okay, why not have shower gardens, for instance, talk about the topic of water, or why not have a balcony on the one side as a greeting to the other district on the other side. These are only moments of like stimulation, because as an urban planner, it's not about us doing that. Yeah? You must distinguish these 2 worlds. I mean, I cannot make the regulations and then also say I'm going to build according to my regulations. This was a I went over it, over this quote, and it's also just in German, unfortunately. I need to translate it. But Hans Bernoulli, a Swiss Swiss urban designer, in the 30s already wrote about, and here 46 in Zurich, about how the urban designer needs to be humble and say, okay, he doesn't or he or she doesn't build the city in terms of build the structure, but he or she organizes and orders it. Yeah? So in this sense, I think there's also this questioning how we're not very used to that, but within a big discussion that we launched in Vienna, and that is also important to me, is like we architects lost the urban design in a way. Yeah, we lost our interaction within structural modes in the city, and are very much at this moment into designing or kind of creating the facades of the city. And I believe that we need to get back into this structural system. And I'm totally aware that kind of the way I presented this project, it's still very abstract. But you can see that we will have a lot of work in order to, what we sometimes call, realize the low line of Vienna as opposed to high line in New York. And low line really on purpose, because it's kind of this nice gap in the city that hopefully we can keep for a long time, for short time use, and really open to the public. And this is how I would like to end. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.